Have you ever noticed how strange it is that sometimes when you have nothing, the feeling is already bad, but when you manage to save a little, it almost feels worse, as if a new tension appears that didn't exist before, as if that money that was supposed to bring you security starts to bring you fear. And I ask you honestly, how many times have you felt more anxious having a little saved than when you were completely broke? How many times have you opened your banking app not to feel calm, but to check if everything was still there, as if anything could disappear at any moment? And at the same time, how many times have you ended the month with that heavy feeling that you worked hard, got really tired, tried to do the right thing, didn't do anything crazy, but still didn't move forward, still didn't make progress, and it feels like the money just disappeared without explanation? And that starts to create a silent doubt inside you, as if something is wrong that you can't see, as if there's an invisible leak happening every single day and you don't know where it is. And the truth is that most of the time, that leak doesn't come from a big decision. It doesn't come from one huge mistake you made once. It comes from a small habit repeated many times. A habit that seems normal, seems harmless, even seems deserved. But deep down, it's draining your financial life, and worse than that, it's draining your peace. Because that habit almost never shows up as a problem. It shows up as relief. It shows up when you're tired, when the day has been heavy, when you feel like you need something to give you a little comfort, and then you think, it's just this, it's not much, it won't make a difference, I deserve it. And in that moment, it feels true. It feels fair, it even feels necessary. But what no one really explains properly is that the problem was never that one isolated expense. The problem is the pattern it creates. It's the repetition. It's the fact that you start using money as an automatic response to any discomfort in your day-to-day life. And when that happens, your life enters a cycle that's very hard to notice while you're inside it. Because on bad days, you spend to feel relief. On good days, you spend to celebrate. In other words, any emotion becomes a justification. Any moment becomes an opportunity to spend, and money stops being a tool and becomes a button you press whenever you want to change how you feel. And that creates a silent trap, because you don't feel like you're doing anything serious. You feel like you're just living, just rewarding yourself, just trying to handle your routine, just trying to get a little pleasure in the middle of exhaustion. And all of that is human. All of that makes sense. But it also has a cost that you don't notice right away because it doesn't show up all at once. It shows up at the end of the month when you look back and realize there's nothing left, that you made no progress, that you're still stuck in the same place. And maybe you've already tried to change this. Maybe you've already promised yourself that you would save more, that you would control yourself, that you would be more disciplined. And for a few days, you even managed to do it. But then you went back to the same pattern. And that starts to create a lot of frustration because it feels like the problem is you, as if you don't have enough willpower, as if you can't do what needs to be done. But the truth is, that's not it. What's happening is that you're trying to change a behavior without changing the environment where it happens. You're trying to resist in the middle of exhaustion, in the middle of pressure, in the middle of triggers that are still the same. And no one can sustain that for long, because living depending only on willpower is like living at war with yourself, and war is exhausting. That's why real change doesn't start when you decide, I'm never going to spend on this again. Real change starts when you understand that you can't trust the decisions you make in the middle of emotion. Because in that moment, your brain isn't thinking about the future. It's trying to solve the present. It's trying to relieve discomfort. It's tired. It wants a quick solution. And money becomes that easy path. So instead of trying to be stronger in the moment of impulse, what you need to do is decide in advance. Organize your life in a way that those decisions don't have to happen all the time. When money comes in, for example, that's one of the most important moments of the month. But a lot of people ignore it. Leave everything mixed together, everything available, everything accessible. And then over the days, the money gets consumed by both needs and impulses. And by the time you realize it, there's nothing left to organize. But when you change that, when you separate a portion right at the beginning, when you remove from reach what can't be used impulsively, you completely change the game. Because now you're not trying to save what's left you already saved before anything was left. And that reduces mental pressure, reduces the number of decisions, reduces the wear and tear. Another important point is understanding that there are moments in the day when you're more vulnerable. It could be at night after a hard day. On the weekend, there's always a moment when your energy is lower and your emotions are more intense. And it's exactly in those moments that the impulse shows up stronger. So when you identify that pattern, you can get ahead of it. You can decide that in those moments you don't make financial decisions, and that prevents many mistakes without requiring extreme effort. At the same time, you start to realize that you don't need to be perfect too, you just need to make fewer mistakes, because that's what creates results. It's not perfection, it's damage reduction. It's stopping the losses, because when you stop losing, the little that's left starts to make a difference. And that difference begins to create something you may not have felt in a long time, a sense of progress. And progress changes everything, because it makes you believe again, it makes you feel like you're moving forward, like you're building something. But there's an important detail in this process that few people understand. When you start saving money, at first it can bring more anxiety, not less, because now you have something to lose. You look at that amount and feel afraid of needing to use it, afraid of seeing it go down, afraid of going back to zero. And that happens because you're still in an intermediate phase. You don't yet have a strong enough reserve to give you real peace, but you already have enough to create worry. And this phase is delicate because a lot of people give up here. A lot of people go back to their old habits precisely because they don't feel the relief they expected. But there is a point where that changes. There's a moment when your savings stop being just a number and start becoming real security. It starts to change the way you think, the way you react, the way you make decisions. You leave constant survival mode and enter a more rational, calmer, more strategic mode. And when that happens, money stops being a source of anxiety and becomes a source of stability. And that's its true function. Because at the end of the day, the goal was never to have money just for the sake of having it. It was never to accumulate just to accumulate. The goal was always to have peace, to not live in fear all the time, to not feel that constant tightness in your chest, to not turn every problem into despair, to be able to look at life with a little more calm and clarity. And all of this starts when you stop ignoring that small habit that seemed harmless because it was never small. It was just repeated. And everything you repeat builds your life, for better or worse. So the decision you need to make isn't about a specific expense. It's about the pattern you want to maintain. It's about the direction you want to give your financial life. If you made it this far, comment the word focus, so I know you watched until the end. And if this made sense to you, leave a like and subscribe. Because here we talk about real life, about money as it really happens in your day-to-day life. No complications, no distant theories, just what actually works.